All right, so you want to understand the Cuban Missile Crisis? Well, strap in, because we're going to break this thing down in a way that even a kid playing with Legos could get it. We're talking nuclear missiles, a standoff between superpowers, and a situation so close to global catastrophe it'll make your head spin. It all went down in 1962. The Cold War was red hot. Imagine you're building this awesome Lego fortress, right? That's Cuba. But then you realize your neighbor, the U.S. has set up these mini missile launchers pointed right at your creation. Not cool. Right, that's pretty much how the Soviets in Cuba felt. See, the U.S. had already put nuclear missiles in Turkey and Italy way too close for the Soviets to feel comfortable. So they decided to have their own little missile party on Cuba, aiming those rockets right back at the U.S. tit-for-tat, Cold War style. But why Cuba, you might be asking? Well, picture this. The U.S. had already tried to barge into your Lego fortress back in '61. Remember the Bay of Pigs invasion? And they didn't stop there. They kept trying to mess things up. Like some mischievous kid poking at your Lego creation. The Soviets saw putting missiles in Cuba as a way to protect their buddy Fidel Castro and basically tell the U.S. back off. Now, how did the U.S. find out about this whole missile situation? Think sneaky spy planes, like little drones zipping around your Lego neighborhood? They were called U-2s. And in October of '62, one of these U-2s snapped some pretty incriminating photos of those Soviet missile sites being built in Cuba. President Kennedy and his crew were like, whoa, hold on a minute. They had a serious problem on their hands. What could they do? Just sit there and do nothing. Not really an option. Try talking it out. Maybe, but would it work? A secret deal, like a hushed agreement between Lego minifigs. Or maybe something more drastic, like sending in the troops or launching an airstrike. They even considered a blockade, like building a wall around your Lego fortress to stop any more missile deliveries. Kennedy and his team, they had to choose their next move carefully. One wrong step could lead to, well, the end of the world as we know it. Talk about pressure. So Kennedy, he went with the blockade. They called it a quarantine, but it was basically a line of U.S. Navy ships to stop Soviet ships from bringing in any more of those Lego missiles. Can you imagine the tension? It was like an old Western movie with two cowboys in the dusty street, eyeing each other up, waiting for the other to make a move. And behind the scenes, things were even more intense. Imagine secret messages being passed between your Lego minifigs, trying to work out a deal before things got out of control. That's what was going on between President Kennedy and Soviet Premier Khrushchev. The guys in charge, they were sending letters back and forth trying to find a way out of this whole nuclear mess. And get this, Khrushchev, he sent 2 letters. And that second one, it really stood a wrench in the works. In the first letter, he proposed a pretty simple trade. The Soviets take their missiles out of Cuba, and the U.S. promises to leave Cuba alone. No more trying to invade. Seemed like a pretty fair deal, right? But then that second letter came, and Khrushchev, he upped the stakes. He wanted the U.S. to remove its missiles from Turkey, too. Remember those? The works that had the Soviets feeling all nervous in the first place. It was like a high-stakes Lego swap. Only the fate of the world was hanging in the balance. Kennedy and his team, they had a tough choice to make. Should they agree to Khrushchev's demands? Some folks thought it was a good way to de-escalate the situation, a tit-for-tat solution to calm things down. But others, they worried it would make the U.S. look weak, like they were backing down under pressure. Tough call, right? But Kennedy, he decided to stick with that first offer. Forget about the second letter. Just focus on the original deal. Soviets out of Cuba, U.S. promises to leave them alone. It was a gamble. But you know what? It worked. Khrushchev agreed to take apart those Lego missiles in Cuba. The U.S. did agree to remove those missiles from Turkey. But they did it quietly, like tucking away some Lego pieces under the table. A little compromise. A way to make sure everyone walked away feeling like they got something out of the deal. So what do we learn from this Lego-fied Cuban Missile Crisis? Well, first off, it shows you that even the biggest, baddest countries in the world can find themselves in situations where one wrong move could have blown everything to smithereens. It's a good reminder that talking things out, even when it's tough, is way better than letting things spiral out of control into full-blown conflict. And sometimes, the best way to solve a problem is to meet in the middle. Find a compromise, a way to share the Lego sandbox peacefully. It's a good thing they did back in '62, Because who wants to live in a world where everyone's constantly on edge, just waiting for the next crisis to pop up?